The day I learned that love doesn't ask for permission was the same day I realized fear wears very professional clothes. It sat across from me in a glass, walled office, carried the weight of decades, and had the calm eyes of a woman everyone said was too old for love. I didn't fall for her suddenly. I fell the way buildings collapse in slow motion, quiet cracks first, then a moment where everything I believed gave way. Before the story pulls you in any deeper, take a second. If you enjoy emotional, real stories like this, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Stories Beyond the Porch. Your support keeps these stories alive and reaching hearts that need them. She was the CEO of the company that gave me my first real chance. Her reputation came before her, sharp, unshakable, distant. People spoke her name the way they spoke about storms, respectfully, carefully, never personally. She had built an empire in an industry that chewed people up young, and she had done it without scandals, without shortcuts, without leaning on anyone. By the time I joined the company, she was already considered untouchable, not just because of her position, but because of her age. Too old, they whispered, too experienced, too set in her ways. Love, according to everyone else, had already passed her by. I noticed her in fragments at first, the way she paused before speaking, as if weighing the cost of every word. The way her eyes softened when she thought no one was looking, usually when someone younger succeeded at something they were proud of. There was a loneliness in her, not loud or desperate, but disciplined, like a room kept locked for years because it was easier than cleaning it out. I didn't name what I felt then. I told myself it was respect, gratitude, curiosity, anything but the truth. The truth became harder to ignore during late nights when the office emptied out and the city lights reflected off the windows like constellations. I would still be at my desk, chasing deadlines, when I'd notice her light was still on. Not because she had to prove anything, she had nothing left to prove, but because work had become the safest place to be. In those quiet hours, I saw the cost of her success, not in exhaustion, but in absence. No family photos on her desk. No personal calls, just the steady hum of a life built entirely around forward motion. The challenge wasn't falling for her. The challenge was everything that came with it. The gap in years that everyone treated like a crime. The power imbalance that made even my own feelings feel inappropriate. The fear that I was projecting something onto her that wasn't real. I fought it the way people fight things they're ashamed of, by pretending it didn't exist. I dated people my age. I took time off. I even considered leaving the company. But feelings don't disappear because they're inconvenient. They wait, they grow roots. What changed everything wasn't a dramatic moment. It was a quiet one. A company crisis hit, the kind that makes headlines and keeps executives awake for weeks. I saw her carry that weight alone, absorbing blame, protecting her people, making impossible decisions without letting anyone see her doubt. And one night, after it was all over, I saw her standing by the window, shoulders finally slumped, victory looking a lot like exhaustion. In that moment, she wasn't a CEO or an age or a title. She was just a human being who had given everything and wasn't sure what was left for herself. From then on, I stopped lying to myself. I didn't act on it recklessly. I didn't cross lines. Instead, I paid attention. I learned who she was beneath the armor. A woman who loved old music because it reminded her of a time when she believed life would be shared. Someone who had been taught, slowly and painfully, that ambition required sacrifice, and that love was usually the first thing offered up. The more I understood her, the more the age difference faded into something irrelevant. What mattered was how seen I felt around her, and how alive she seemed when she forgot to be invincible. The struggle moved inward. I wrestled with judgment that hadn't even been spoken yet. I imagined the looks, the gossip, the assumptions. I asked myself brutal questions. Was I confusing admiration for love? Was I chasing something forbidden just because it felt intense? And the hardest one of all, was I ready to stand beside someone whose life was already fully formed, when mine still felt like it was under construction? Change didn't arrive like permission. It arrived like acceptance. I realized that love doesn't follow timelines the way careers do. It doesn't care about how many birthdays separate two hearts. It only asks whether two people are willing to meet each other honestly, without disguises. When I finally allowed myself to imagine a future that included her, it wasn't scandalous or dramatic. It was quiet, shared mornings, mutual respect, two people choosing each other despite the noise. What surprised me most was how much she had been taught to believe the lie herself. That she was past wanting, past needing, past deserving. Success had rewarded her with admiration, but punished her with isolation. Loving her meant challenging that story, not just for the world, but for her. And in doing so, it forced me to challenge my own fears, of judgment, of imbalance, of loving someone who had already survived more life than I had. By the time everything began to shift, I understood something simple and radical. Age had never been the barrier. Fear was, fear of what people would say, fear of starting again, fear of admitting that even the strongest people still want to be chosen. When that fear loosened its grip, what remained was something steady and real, built not on illusion, but on understanding. If this story is stirring something in you, if it reminds you of a love you questioned or a feeling you tried to bury, please take a moment to like, comment, and share this video. Subscribe to Stories Beyond the Porch if you believe stories like this deserve space to breathe. And before this story ends, I have a special request. If this touched your heart, comment one line below that describes what love means to you now. Just one honest line. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to read today, because love doesn't retire, it doesn't expire, and it certainly doesn't ask whether the world is comfortable with it. It simply arrives, unexpected and inconvenient, and waits to see if we're brave enough to let it stay.